Raiders Zone Weekly with Steve Kandray, Vince Calautti, Billy Hassinger, and Jesse Meade.
This is indeed Raiders Zone Weekly. We bring you your weekly dose of sports news. We are hoping that you joined us as we've been off the air for a couple weeks. There's been some crazy stuff going on, but we're back and better than ever, hopefully. We'll see if that holds up because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about this week. First, that being the Ohio State Buckeyes smoke Duke, blow them out of the water in a game where Ohio State basketball looked very good and what has been a pretty solid week of news for Ohio State athletics. But in this game kind of builds up the national championship hopes of Ohio State after our hopes were dashed so horribly this football season.
You know, they're as great as they look, there's just one thing that you could consider a downfall for this game, and that is the fact that they didn't really work in any other players other than the five that they started. Kraft, Buford, Sullinger, they played all but like 2 minutes of that game between all three of them. So one thing is that what Coach Mata possibly would like to do is try and work in all these other guys that are going to have to be key players down the stretch. But other than that, they look great. They led wire to wire.
I refuse to think about a potential national championship until they make it to the Final Four because I've just seen too many Buckeye letdowns. I mean, even in football, last year in basketball, got knocked out a lot earlier than we hoped for. They do look good. I mean, it's amazing they knocked off Duke, but I don't know if that says more about the Buckeyes or if it says that Duke's just not up to par this year. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Duke was undefeated before that game, so that is Duke's first loss.
I believe Duke was in the Maui Invitational, too.
Yep. Yeah, they're undefeated in the Maui Invitational, so they definitely are a very good team, and you got to take a look at this Buckeyes offense. That seems to be Thad Matter's MO, though. He likes to just play 4 or 5 guys. Usually with the smaller teams that are like FCS schools and such, he'll bring everybody out, but when it gets to those big games, he only likes to use 4 or 5 players. We saw him do it with the Greg Oden-led teams. We saw him do it last year. Not surprisingly, he's doing it again this year, but I think it's a great sign for an Ohio State team that in games like these, there's usually some sort of letdown. We saw the Florida matchup between them, looked like a close eke that one out. They've absolutely throttled Duke, and yes, while I am kind of a Duke fan, I loved seeing them lose. It was excellent to watch that.
Whoa.
I don't like North Carolina, therefore I have to like Duke, I guess.
Just don't like either of them.
Yeah. You can just be neutral to both.
I'm kind of a Duke fan, so I was really excited when they lost this weekend.
Can't be a fan of the evil empire,
See,
man.
I'm a Coach K fan, though. I like Coach K.
That's
I do like him.
You can like the person, just don't like the team.
I don't know, man. Well, I can't say much. I'm a Kentucky fan, so I'm naturally inclined to hate Duke. But, to look at this game, again, Ohio State led wire to wire. It was a great effort by the Buckeyes, and because of that, they now are kind of sitting in the seat and the top seat of the NCAA basketball. Of course, it's very early in the season. If we know anything about NCAA basketball, it's that Ohio State will blow a game at some point or they'll lose. But what we do know now because of this game is that Ohio State's very capable of winning these types of matchups, which is important, especially at a fairly early point in the season. News out of Boston that Bobby Valentine is now the manager of the Boston Red Sox. And they got their guy. They think that he's going to be the right man for the job. The question is, can he emulate the success that the Red Sox found here over the last decade or so after, a century of futility?
Well, maybe he can work out Dice K and figure out how to do since he can speak Japanese now. So, I mean, that's something they really got to work on, that starting pitching right there. And the apparent lackadaisicalness of that clubhouse. As great of a motivator as Bobby Valentine is, I think it's going to be a lot harder than what people expect. This is a team full of veterans. They're not going to want to change the way they do things. Really, they should have done more than just, if they're going to get rid of the manager, they should have made some sort of moves to get rid of some of these guys and make a statement of everybody's held accountable. Instead, the players seem to get off a little scot-free in this case. I think it's going to be harder for Valentine to put his imprint on than what people think.
And for some reason, when you talked about him being able to speak Japanese with Daisuke, I just got this amusing image that the only reason Boston hasn't been succeeding is because no one can speak Japanese.
Genius.
And Daisuke is just kind of doing his own thing. Like, nobody knows. He just kind of like goes out there, doesn't even know what any of the signs, can't even read English at all. Like, I don't know. I was really amused by that. I have no idea who Bob Valentine is.
Again,
I'm bowing out. I don't know baseball.
You don't know who Bobby Valentine is?
Well, he hates baseball. What do you expect?
I don't like baseball. It's boring.
I'm glad that every time that we have this baseball subject, he feels the need to remind us that he doesn't like baseball and knows nothing about what we're talking about.
It's because Vince apparently forgot. He's like, you don't know who that is?
But you should know who that is. I mean, he's bigger than baseball. You should at least know who he is.
Vince, just be quiet. Let me talk. But yeah, going back to what Steve said, though, about Daisuke and the communication between Daisuke, when he's on the mound, the catcher is crucial. At one point when Daisuke first came over, Veritek actually had a sleeve that had Japanese written on it and then translated into English so that he knew exactly what to call. And then I think the real question here is how long until Bobby Valentine gets thrown out of a game and comes back with the sunglasses, fake nose, and mustache bit again?
That would be pretty cool. It's I think in the first place, the entire how we got to this situation with the Red Sox was kind of a debacle in the first place. So I guess this is probably the best they could have done, considering the circumstances. And they're going to hope here that he can have the same type of success that they're used to having because, believe it or not, Boston is actually now they are a team that is used to winning. They're used to contending for World Series titles. So if that doesn't happen immediately under Valentine, he's going to start seeing a lot of issues. And this is a Red Sox team that has a lot of issues that can't be easily corrected very quickly, I should say. We got our first 5-minute subject of the evening.
5 Undivided.
5 Undivided. First thing we're talking about is, of course, the big news if you live in Ohio, of course, unless you're living under a rock. That is Urban Meyer was introduced as the head coach of Ohio State football. Question is Luke Fickell staying on the staff? What kind of staff are we going to have at Ohio State? What kind of offense is Ohio State is going to see? It's already paying dividends in the recruiting department for Urban Meyer. A couple players have already switched their allegiance as far as recruiting goes, but from all appearances, it really does appear that it was a successful move.
Like the person who randomly just walked by the studio and gave Vince a nod of approval, I also give a nod of approval to Urban Meyer. So Ohio State, you can be satisfied in the fact that I have given approval. I was just trying to make a segue out of the weird thing that just happened. But anyway, one of my friends from Ohio State actually had a really good tweet about this whole thing, and he said that Urban Meyer is going to let a lot worse things happen than Tattoo-gate, but he's going to cover it up a lot better. And I kind of believe that. Like, I don't think Florida was a squeaky clean program.
I mean, point out any program. I mean, now that we have been through everything that we've been through here in the last 2 years of college football, I want anyone to point their finger at any big-time Division I college football program and tell me that program is clean. It's not.
It's not. And that's why I think that
none of them.
I think it's a good point. I think Urban Meyer knows the system a little bit better. I think Tressel cared a little bit too much about the players, and Urban Meyer probably doesn't care as much. I mean, it puts it very harsh, but I'm just, I feel like he might know the system, work it a little bit better. I mean, he's definitely going to do some recruiting outside of Ohio, which should be interesting, but I'm excited about it.
People always ask me, like, oh, how can you like Kentucky? How can you like Coach Calipari? Everyone's dirty. The man is the master of being dirty. Whatever. He hopefully he wins a national title before Kentucky gets driven into the ground. That's all I'm saying.
Of course you would hope they win a national title, but...
I mean, aren't you hoping Ohio State wins a national title before the next time they get driven into the ground in football?
Oh, yeah, obviously, because we're Ohio State.
Right.
Ohio, but nonetheless, so back to Meyer. It's a good hire, just for the fact, you look at Ohio State's had the pipeline of being able to recruit Florida players, but now I think that with Meyer and the success that he had at Florida, it's going to draw players that would normally go to one of those Florida schools. He might be able to draw those big-time players up here to Ohio, and he might be able to go into Pennsylvania, up into Michigan, and here in Ohio, and draw in more big-time players. So it really is a good thing, and if Fickell does stay, I think it'd be a good thing because you see all the way the defense played in a number of games. They were able to step it up with Fickell as the defensive-minded coach. If he keeps Fickell as a defensive coordinator and keeps Rabel as the linebackers coach, you've got a pretty good coaching staff.
Fickell's also a great recruiter.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he keeps those two out of everyone on the Ohio State coaching staff right now, I'd be happy, but get rid of Boltman, please.
That's the silver lining and everything. The era of Bowman may be over.
This is a great hire and a dangerous hire at the same time. Great hire because it fits the people that are there right now. Tom McShay had a great article about how this fits with how the personnel fits with Meyer's scheme. Braxton Miller being the big name right there. That's going to fit perfectly in Meyer's style system. Meyer is that big guy who can draw in tons of people. His offense, he's going to bring whoever he wants in. Fickell, I don't know if he's going to stay or not for the simple fact he's got his taste at a head coaching job. If someone else wants to give him a shot, I think he'll take it. I think he's going to keep the whole defensive side. He loves the defense. I think he's going to get rid of his offense, but he's going to bring in his own people. Dangerous for a number of factors. This is the first rock star coach that Ohio State has hired. Everyone else has came from humble backgrounds. Woody Hayes from Miami. You have Earl Bruce behind him. You have Jim Tressel from YSU. While he's known, he was not a big-name commodity. Right. This is the first guy who may come in already bigger than the program. Woody Hayes became bigger than the program later, so that's a difference. The other thing is he's never stayed more than 6 years at a college.
Right.
Florida being the longest tenure that he's ever had as a head coach. So that's the other factor. He's not someone who likes to stay very long, especially when things start to go bad. and he's going to jump ship very quickly, especially if this probation slaps him hard. We're going to see how long he wants to stay through that. He's got a huge deal with them. He's already being paid as one of the top 10 guys. So that's your danger spot about it. Oh, however, I think the pros outweigh the cons a little more in this instance, particularly with who we have in position right now as football players.
I don't really think it's that bad if he stays with the program not that long. I mean, if he's only going to stay for 6 years and he wins 2 national titles in those 6 years, I'd be pretty happy with that. I mean, I don't think you can write him off just saying, well, he doesn't stay very long as automatically a negative thing.
One of the rumblings that have been going around is he stays for about 5-6 years, and then that's when Ohio State reintroduces Jim Tressel as head coach, and look, he's improved and he's back, and don't worry, none of that stuff will happen again this time, guys.
The only danger that what I see that is, especially if he gets on the probation, how long that lasts. If the probation's long enough and we don't see the results that we're expecting to see because of the probation, because we can't travel to the bowl games and such,
right,
will he leave earlier because of that? That's the danger that I see in that.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he obviously signed the contract knowing what was coming. I mean, he knew the probation was coming. He knew there's a chance that it could be bad, but he still willingly went into the contract. So I don't see him leaving really quickly unless like something drastically unexpected happens. But either way, it's been a very interesting week for Ohio State football, and we'll see how it goes. At least we will have a modern offense for the first time in how long at Ohio State?
Finally.
Ever, I think. We'll see how it goes. Speaking of the Big Ten, let's head up north across state lines and think about the University of Michigan. How far can they go under head coach Brady Hoke? They, of course, beat Ohio State in the game this last weekend, and now looking at it now, this is a team that looks pretty good. They've got a pretty decent nucleus of players. Hoke is only going to continue to bring in players that fit his scheme instead of adapting his scheme to Rich Rodriguez's recruits. How much better, I should say, can Michigan get here?
I almost have no doubt that with Hoke as the head coach and Madison as the defensive coordinator, there's almost no doubt that they can win a national title. You look at it, the way that he was able to adapt the system to Denard Robinson and the players that Rodriguez had in there, and the success they had switching over to a pro-style offense, and then the way that the defense played this year as opposed to the last couple years. And Hoke is a guy that he will recruit defensive players, unlike Rich Rodriguez. So this is a team. The sky's the limit right now. I almost won't be surprised if they come out, win the Big Ten title next year, and possibly are in contention for a national title as well.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about this. I mean, at one point I see a Michigan team that could, as much as I hate to say this, could be really good in the next few years.
Yeah.
At the same time, I could also see them just fizzle out as those players graduate. Part of me wants to look at this and say, well, it's less about the coaching and it's more about that nucleus of players has sort of matured over the last few years. I mean, we've got Denard Robinson, who has been in the spotlight for a couple of years, and now he's finally sort of coming into his own. And we have several other players on the Michigan team that have kind of been around and have just become really good players. And I could easily see it just sort of fizzling out after that. And then, I feel like we don't want to jump on this too soon.
Right.
Just after one decent season. I mean, we'll see where it goes.
Like I said, the thing that really just stood out to me, though, is that Hoke took this team of basically Rodriguez players and took them way farther than Rich Rodriguez could ever take them.
Yeah. As an Ohio State fan, I really just want to say they're going to suck because I'm an Ohio State fan and I hate Michigan with every fiber of my being. But that being said, the defense has improved remarkably well under that first season, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they battle out. Key, again, is always going to be that Ohio State-Michigan game. How well can he handle, how well is he going to face off against Urban Meyer and his type of offense when you've got that going? Ohio State fans are already expecting us to start winning all those games again now that Meyer has been hired. That's going to be the key. He may get fired because he can't beat Ohio State.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that's a lot to say, too. One of the questions I guess I never really got to that was on my mind during the Urban Meyer segment was, can an offense like the Florida-esque offense, can that be an offense that actually lasts an entire season throughout the Big Ten? This is going to be an aside, but I'm going down this rabbit hole. I don't care. A lot of people say the SEC is vastly superior to the Big Ten because the players are faster, the offense is more modern, et cetera, et cetera. The thing I have to ask, let's say transplant the best team in the SEC right now, LSU. Obviously, they very well could and probably would go undefeated in the Big Ten. But think about how dynamically different their season would be if they were playing Big Ten teams on a weekly basis, playing the defenses that are in the Big Ten, playing the rough, slogging offenses that are in the Big Ten. Would LSU hold up to that kind of beating on a weekly basis? They obviously play very different football in the SEC. I think the results, you would have these SEC teams getting upset more in the Big Ten unless they were able to adapt themselves to the type of football that's played in the Big Ten. That's the worry I have about Urban Meyer. If we're running this type of offense, can those players hold up throughout an entire season against a Big Ten conference that's designed to wear you down over the course of a season? That's really the problem. You see a lot of Big Ten parity. Anyone can beat anyone almost on a weekly basis just because everyone gets so worn down on the season. But that's just me. That's my rant. That's my aside. I'm sorry I got us off track. But we can talk about USC. They're on probation, obviously. Can't play any bowl games. But they completely destroyed UCLA, who, by the way, was wearing awesome uniforms when they lost horrifically. Destroyed UCLA. But the Bruins still get to make the Pac-12 title game appearance because of USC's probation. Obviously, you also have Stanford, who lost to Oregon. That's their only loss, but unfortunately, since they're in the same division as Oregon, they can't play in the title game. So now we're just going to watch UCLA get blown out for 2 weeks in a row, this time to Oregon, when last week it was the USC. It's unfortunate that we're seeing the USC team kind of resurge, but they can't show themselves on a national stage because of the sins of the program's past.
Does anyone else beside me find this hilarious? I mean, I find it quite funny for the simple fact that it's another team that I don't like. The USC is one of those teams that you look at and you either love them or you hate them,
right.
And I kind of hate them. So I think it's hilarious that UCLA, a team that's absolutely terrible, who fired their coach, and because they won, got carried off on this field for possibly his last game in this championship game if they don't make a bowl game. I think it's hilarious that team gets to go so they can get crushed just because USC had a player who screwed it up for them. I think it's funny.
Reggie Bush and Pete Carroll all fled the nest, and now you're left with this at USC.
Yeah, USC, you knew that they were going to be a good team, and next year, with this being the last year of their probation, it's going to be a scary team because you look at it, they got a lot of young players. Their wide receivers are just sophomores and some freshmen. Barkley's a junior, so he could possibly very well return. And, we talked about this a couple years ago, Jesse, when he first came in. It's like, is he going to be one of those quarterbacks that could go on to win a Heisman Trophy? Next season, he very well could be in the midst of the Heisman Trophy race if he has the type of season that he has this year. Just before the fact that they are on probation and aren't able to go on primetime and all that, I didn't realize the season he's having, but he's got about well over 30 touchdowns and well over 3,300 yards. I mean, he's having a phenomenal season.
I think what I take away from this, fine, go.
No,
it's
go,
okay.
Continue.
It's okay. You guys had much more valid points. Let's move on to the next thing. I don't want to
really?
go.
You're going to do this?
Nope.
You're going to do this? You realize we're on live radio right now. That you just quit on us on live radio.
The bell rang. It's the rules.
I'm sorry.
Some of us follow the rules of the bell, unlike yourself.
Do you just want to leave? Do you want to quit on us and take your cushy job at ESPN and then come back to take a dream job like Ohio State years down the line? Is that what you're getting at here? Nothing? Really? That got nothing? All right, whatever. Cheers of the week. Jerome Simpson and the greatest flop in NFL history. At least it finally outdid the flop I believe we saw earlier in the year by the New York Giants.
Insert mandatory soccer joke here.
Oh, yeah.
Take the dibs on that? Yeah. It was
no idea that Jerome Simpson was Italian.
It was
no idea.
It was horrible. I mean, for those of you who didn't see it, he got pushed, and it looked like in the movies when somebody gets shot and they just fly backwards. Like,
right.
he just sort of got shoved.
By
and
Mack truck.
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, and did they call a flag on that or not?
Yeah, they threw a flag.
I mean,
they threw the flag on it.
Amazing.
No, they threw the flag on Fujita.
Well, they called it both. It was offsetting penalties.
Okay.
It was kind of, I don't know. I just feel
it was really weird.
Well, all I know is that when I saw this again, it's like just Simpson pulls Fujita out of the dog pile. Fujita just barely taps him, and you just see Simpson go flying off the flying off the screen, and it's just like, and they throw a flag. I'm like, really?
If I was the coach,
they just did that?
If I was the coach, I'd kick him off the team. You're a football player. This isn't soccer. It's not Europe. We're not running around falling over the place.
It was like watching big time pro wrestling. The skit that the referee is distracted and then they turn around and they see a person laying on the ground. They see the chair and the other guy standing like, what did I do? And the referee disqualifies him. That's exactly what happened. The referee didn't see any of this happen. He turns around. He sees Simpson laying on the turf and Fujita staying like, I don't know what just happened. And he's like, oh, I guess that's a flag. Here it is.
Little do we know that Fujita has the power of a Mack truck in his pinky.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously that's what occurred because that nothing could have happened either way. Oh, wait, no, he just is really bad at flopping. your insert mandatory soccer joke, he should go to Italy and learn how to flop correctly so he can get the penalty. Come on.
That would have
I'm a
resulted
soccer
in an
fan.
ejection.
I'm a soccer fan, but still,
That
come
would have
on.
been an ejection in soccer.
The only time in football when it's even close to being acceptable, it would be like a punter when they're always, you want to fall down when it gets tapped.
I love punter flops. Those
Right.
are
I mean, but you know what? That's understandable because that's a legitimate sort of concern. It's like, well, if they're going to throw the flag, if you tap him anyway, you might as well go down. But this had no context. There wasn't even a play where it's like, well, try and get the penalty.
Right.
It was just random.
Right.
He just got shoved.
So what have we learned this week?
I think what he realized is that no official was looking at him right when Fujita tapped him. So he's just going to go down, act like he's in pain, and then get a flag on Fujita.
What have we learned this week? Scott Fujita has telekinetic powers, and he force pushed.
And I knew I liked him for a reason.
So how many YouTube videos of this is just going to have a repeat of him flopping over and over again?
It'll be forever go down in history. That was a great flop. I got to be honest. Jeers of the week, Stevie Johnson. Not only did he blow up for his team the first time with what may have been the most hilarious celebration of the year, I'll give him that. That was pretty funny. Not only did he blow up for his team the first time, though, with the penalty that ended up leading to a score, he then dropped a touchdown pass and a big pass to advance down the field late in the game to give the Bills a chance to win. And then the cream of the coup de grace later was not only did Stevie Johnson blow it, making fun of Plexico Burress shooting himself in the leg with the touchdown dance, which again was hilarious. Plexico Burress then makes a game-winning catch later in the day, is asked about it, and says, whatever, I made the game-winning catch. Who's Stevie Johnson? And it was great. Again, jeer-worthy, to say the least.
Yeah, just the way that the answer that Plax had for this, I thought it was great because, if this was Plax from a few years ago, he probably would have been like, that was so disrespectful, it was so classless and all that. But he maintained his composure, and he actually called out Johnson and being like, yeah, well, at least I didn't blow the game for my team. And the kickoff that happened after the penalty occurred of Johnson in the end zone, that was just sad because they only went about 10 yards. And then something else, just because, we're on rants about who we hate and all that, LeBron James in a flag football game did the Stevie Johnson celebration, and I was just like,
what I was about to
I was
say.
just like, wow, really? LeBron's even doing it?
LeBron's
I
a
hate you.
copier. I mean, come on, LeBron's a copier. We know this. He went down to Miami because he wanted to copy what Wade did. He likes to copy things.
Wade was drafted.
Wade's been in Miami his entire career.
I know. That's why he went down to Miami.
Come
to
on,
copy
man.
the
Now
title,
you're just a ranting Cavs fan. Come on, let's step back here. You should write letters in Comic Sans and post them on the internet.
But Stevie Johnson, that was just, while it was hilarious to see what he did, because he also did none of that would have mattered had he not fallen on the ground.
Right.
That's the thing you got to remember. Had he just done the jet thing and ran off and then fallen off on the sideline or something, he would have been okay. So the whole shooting the leg thing is not what they were talking about. It's that he fell on the ground.
Yeah.
So just a numbskull move to fall on the ground. Otherwise, the whole shooting in the leg
Yeah.
dance would
On
have
its
been
own,
legal.
though, I think this is up there. I think this is up there with some of the better ones. I think this is up there with T.O. grabbing the pom-poms. That was pretty good. I laughed legitimately when I saw it.
Part of me wants to look at this and say, well, it's entertainment. It's kind of fun to watch. I mean, we're all getting a good laugh out of it. It is really just entertainment. I mean, it's sports. It's a form of entertaining ourselves. How many times can I say entertainment in a sense? Anyway, my other point is that, on the same side as though you're getting paid millions and millions of dollars to play football, be a professional. Please, seriously.
I've read this argument. There have been so many not that yours was, but there have been so many self-righteous arguments around for the last week. Obviously, it's one thing to make the argument you blew the game for your team. That okay, I accept that argument. But to say celebrations in general, you celebrate like a professional, hand the ball to the referee. No, these guys are making $20 million to play a sport. This isn't
yes, that's why you should hand the ball to the referee.
No, it's not. Why are they getting paid that much? Because they entertain us.
Yeah, exactly. In arena football,
I want to be entertained.
In arena football, when you see a player score a touchdown or something like that, they celebrate like that.
Yeah,
they're allowed to do it too because
Stevie Johnson is not a judge. Stevie Johnson is not a congressman. He doesn't have to be classy, on the field. He's there to entertain us. And if we act like this is anything other than entertainment, then I think we're lying to ourselves.
But it's the point where don't even risk it because you're getting to the point where you can hurt your team. And that's where it's like every time I see a Steelers receiver, they have a lot of young receivers, and a lot of times they'll catch the ball, they'll get up, and they'll point when there's 30 seconds left. Get back in the huddle. Don't hurt your team. You should be focused on the game rather than your individual accomplishment.
The other point is don't fall on the ground when you're doing your celebration. It's totally legal unless you fall on the ground.
Right. Jared Allen, of course, he does the hog tie celebration whenever he gets a sack. He's had to modify it so his knee actually doesn't touch the ground when he does it. Otherwise, they would flag him every time.
Although, another little tangent here. We talked about soccer and flopping earlier. If you watch YouTube videos of best soccer celebrations, they are a league beyond anything that NFL players do.
Oh yeah,
they have full coordinated. They have sets and stuff.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's about the only good thing about soccer.
Well, this is the problem when you have a fascist like Roger Goodell running the office in the NFL. Just kidding, Roger. I love you.
Don't find Jesse.
Don't find me, please. But anyway, 5 undivided. The NBA. Speaking of fascist commissioners, the NBA.
That's
the
a good
NBA
unintentional segue.
The NBA is back. First games that take place on Christmas Day, and again, I've had my rants about how much I hate the NBA, so I'll let you guys field this one because it legitimately is reason to be excited.
This is interesting because as of, I believe, Thursday, they were still trying to get the right signatures as of today, and they needed to get it done by tonight, to have all the signatures done to form the union once again and go and do that. So you're looking at that. That's going to be interesting. But I think Christmas Day, they needed to get it going. Great job to finally come together after all the posturing and everything and a lot of things going on with that. However, there's some people that whispers going around that this did not help any of the small market teams, which was one of the goals to do is try to help out these small market teams.
No, it did not.
So
at all.
No, and we'll see what happens with that when we have another lockout in the next few years, just because the players hate the commissioner.
Right.
As what has come out, they basically hate the commissioner.
And I can tell Billy has something to say, so I'll just be real quick here. What's the first thing that happened once we said the NBA is back? Chris Paul wants out of New Orleans. Dwight Howard wants out of Orlando. Nothing has changed.
Yep,
Continue.
we talked about this yesterday, but I'm in shock that there actually is going to be an NBA season, but quite frankly, the Cavs are probably going to suck again this year. They got Kyrie Irving, they got Tristan Thompson, the first 4 picks of the draft this year. So, but honestly, I'm probably not going to watch that much NBA because the Cavs are going to do horrible, so at least we got our Buckeyes.
This also brings up another interesting issue. Did anyone really care that there was no NBA until, has anybody really missed it?
I wouldn't have been all disappointed if there wouldn't have been an NBA season, but, just something.
There is a very devoted following, but
because
the NBA has continued to fall.
My point here is I think the NBA should regularly start their season on Christmas Day, make it a new tradition. In commemoration of the lockout, and always feel like, remember, there always could be a lockout, and to make it shorter, because the regular season in the NBA really doesn't matter. The Cavaliers proved it time and time again. The regular season, it's like a really, really long preseason where you're just sort of like getting in shape. Players slack off. They get in the dog days of January and February. It's too long for the way the sport is. So I say just start them, around end of December, early January. Maybe it'll be a more exciting season.
You talk about that. Well, I know I mentioned it before. The highlight was soccer had a higher attendance than the NBA did.
Yeah.
So, that's, you want to talk about flagging stuff, MLS. Thank you, Seattle.
There's one problem, though, with the Christmas Day idea starting the season then. Lots and lots and lots of lost revenue. That will never happen. It's like the NBA. It's like when the NFL shortened the preseason. No way. That's tons of revenue made for the teams. But no, for the NBA, again, they're back. The thing that I ask, we had all this drama. We missed a huge chunk of the season. And what have we fixed?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Nothing has changed.
And like Vince said, they wanted to help the small market teams. They didn't do that because they didn't institute a hard cap. Bring in a stinking hard salary cap.
Never happen. It's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen. But that's the only way that you're actually going to have more teams have a fair shot.
It's you have to think of it this way. You look at the NFL, and you look at leagues like baseball and things like that, and you have to ask yourself, when are the Milwaukee Bucks ever going to win an NBA title? Never. When are the Pittsburgh Pirates ever going to, unless they turn their front office around? When are they ever going to win a World Series? Never. And it doesn't happen that way unless you have a hard cap or some sort of quasi hard cap that spreads players around. And as long as we continue to have NBA players that can negotiate their way off of the teams that they don't want to play for and to whatever market they want to be in, then it's going to be like this forever.
I think we need some sort of like a Billy Bean type character to come in and figure out some Moneyball system for basketball.
That'd be awesome, actually.
Like he comes up with a bunch of D-League players and pays them all this whole salary cap's like $300 and they win a championship. They all have that one skill they're really good at.
That would be amazing. Bring in Coach K, have him coach a bunch of just skill players and just Duke basketball, spot shot, 3-pointers everywhere. It'd be great. Speaking of the new CBA, it is about to be tested, as I've mentioned. Both Dwight Howard and Chris Paul. Chris Paul wants out of New Orleans. Dwight Howard has not said he wants out of Orlando, but it's kind of really obvious that he's going to be the next great Lakers center. Again, we're looking at this. Boston couldn't quickly enough tell everyone that they were willing to get rid of Rajon Rondo. How's Rondo supposed to feel about that? He's been their backbone as a point guard for years now, and really he's the only great young player left on that entire team.
He is, and they said that they would be willing to trade Rondo and I believe some future picks for Chris Paul, but Paul said that it's like if he gets traded to Boston, he's not going to sign a long-term extension, and he would only be there for this season. So it's just like these players, just like you said, Jesse, they can just say it's like, no, I'm not going to go there. You can't, whatever. It's like it's not your choice if you want to go somewhere. It's the team if they want to trade you. When you're a free agent, then you get to choose where you want to go.
That's the thing right there. Really Boston set that precedent when they traded for people. Then other teams saw, oh hey, we have this big three thing going on that we can do around. And then it got pushed into the forefront when LeBron and Bosh went down to Miami. So now this whole thing, people are going around saying, I can do this. And remember, LeBron and Bosh and Wade all took less money. So obviously money is not important for them because they can make it back through endorsement deals. Yeah. This is not going to affect
the contract
them.
isn't even important.
I was going to say, they don't even care about the kind of money they're making from the league. They just care about the
exactly. This is chump change for them. They're not going to worry about that. So you're coming through with those things. Essentially, trading Rondo for Chris Paul might be a bit of an upgrade because they take Rondo out in the fourth quarter because he's such a defensive liability. You look at it that way. Chris Paul's a better defender, a better passer. Although Rondo is ridiculously good, we saw him in that second round of the playoffs. It's still one of those things where they would essentially rent him out to get the big three, one more ring for them, and then he would go wherever, probably New York.
Look like you have quite a bit on your mind, Steve.
You know, I was just sort of I was very pensive in the last minute. I was trying to think of new ways to look at this because I feel like we rehashed it quite a bit. But I think that the main point remains, like you brought up at the beginning, what have we solved for this lockout? Nothing.
Nothing.
It's just been completely futile. Never going to change. Little teams are never going to be able to win. It is depressing. I think that's really the point of what I was pondering about. It's a sad state the NBA is in,
isn't it? You know, I don't know. It is sad because I don't know. You'll never see teams do great. You know, they may be able to draft a great player, and what happens if Kyrie Irving becomes a superstar? What's he probably going to do? He would want out of Cleveland more than likely. You know what I mean? It's sad.
Who wants to go to Cleveland and play?
That's a very legitimate question, though. Who does want to go to Cleveland to play? You know, it's hard.
LeBron was literally the best option because at least he was from Akron and Ohio. You know, he had like he maybe was the only person who'd be like, yeah, I want to play in Cleveland because it's, you know, from Ohio. But
and that's really what it looked like. He said, I'm not leaving. But, you know, whatever. I hate the NBA.
Don't get me started on that topic.
Here's something. While we're already enraged, would anyone be enraged if the BCS would take the backdoor easy way out and put the two non-BCS teams in the BCS game against each other again, a la last year, where we saw Boise State and TCU
2 years ago.
2 years ago, sorry, where we saw them play each other. If we see Houston and Boise, again, I feel like it's likely though to happen.
It's going to be. You're going to hear more people yelling about this now, though. I know Boise lost, but still, you're going to hear them yelling about this, going, "Wow, again, another easy way out for the BCS, still trying to knock those guys out." I would be furious at this, but like, really? Because as good as Houston is with that offense, I don't think they can play against Boise's defense. I think Boise would stomp them, and because I think Boise is vaulted from that little guy to a legitimate contender, a la a Gonzaga in NCAA basketball. They're going to be one of those small teams that's going to always hang around. One day they may jump up, provided Chris Peterson stays.
Right.
But you take a look at those things. I really think that this is just, like you said, it's so easy way out. There are going to be a lot of angry people at this, and it's just going to increase that call for the playoffs.
There's also option door number 2, and that is to put either one of these teams in the Big East bowl game. That would also enrage me.
What amazes me at this point, I guess I've just been so engrossed in following Division III football, I don't even know how Houston got. How are they ranked number? I don't even know what their mascot is.
Seriously.
Cougars.
The Cougar.
Offense, man.
I just had no idea. Like, I was just looking at the poll. I was like, wait, Houston? Like, what?
Let's put our resident Rain Man statistician on the job here.
What about? With Case Keenum has 4,300 yards, 43 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions.
Oh, that was seriously.
It's like modern day Hawaii.
He went into a daze and he just looked out the window, was just reciting stats without even thinking about it.
But yeah, no,
it's crazy.
Houston's offense is insanely. It's just it's like watching old school June Jones Hawaii. But football.
I mean, the same thing with Hawaii. You're in Conference USA. I mean,
and we saw what happened to Hawaii,
right? And once they get into
a
bowl
Georgia,
game,
but that's because Hawaii is. Don't even start on Hawaii, but if they do put Boise and Houston in the same bowl game, which they will, I will be enraged, have some words, watch that bowl game, watch Houston get slaughtered because Boise slaughtered Georgia in the opening game of the season, and Georgia's playing for the SEC title Saturday.
And I'm noticing a theme because when we watch that game and we'll ask ourselves, what has changed? Nothing. Anyway,
the BCS is still the bullcrap series.
Here's something that has changed. That is Denver's offense in the NFL. Of course, Tim Tebow's come in, and all he's done is win. Has not looked pretty doing it, not necessarily playing NFL offense, but it's working. I mean, they're running pretty much a quasi-high school option football attack. Every now and then Tebow throws to keep you honest. But it's working, and they're winning. Of course, John Elway's already said this isn't a sustainable offense. This isn't how you win in the NFL. So, he's not entirely sold on Tebow being the long-term solution. But here's the question. Is this offense sustainable? Should Denver continue to win?
No, they shouldn't. They should not continue to win. But somehow they are. There's an element of luck to it. What powerhouse defense have they played?
Is this dumb luck, or is it
personally
something that's so drastically different that is working?
I honestly think it's completely dumb luck. I think if you get up against the big-time defenses, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Green Bay at this point, they would have no chance at all. I think that not the triple option, sorry. I was getting ahead of myself thinking into D3 land. I think the option just gets destroyed. Tebow gets, put in his place. I just think that it's really just the competition, just kind of some dumb luck, personally. I just do not see it. I really agree with John Elway. That's just not how you win in the NFL. It could work for a couple games, but don't get your hopes up, Denver.
It is not sustainable, but you also look at it, the defense has been playing so much better ever since Tebow took over. When Orton was the quarterback, you looked at it, they had the mentality, it's like, we're going to be put right back out there. Orton can't take care of the ball this year. We're just going to be on the field too long. And now with Tebow in there, they're winning the time of possession battle by a huge amount. The defense is well rested when they do go back out there. They know they have a quarterback that will take care of the ball, although he does throw some very bad passes at times. But the defense has been playing so much better in the games that Tebow has been the quarterback, and that is also a big reason why they're winning.
There are 2 points as to why this won't be sustainable. Well, really, 1 point why it won't be sustainable. One reason why the defense is doing as well with Tebow in. A little correlation, when we had a bad goalie in soccer, our defense would step up because we didn't want him to be embarrassed and get smoked because we knew he wouldn't be able to stop it. Same thing. The defense realizes that he's not a good quarterback, so he steps in. So the defense steps up and goes, okay, here's what we do. We're going to play hard, keep this game close, and let him go the last 5 minutes.
But here's the thing. He's not turning the ball over either.
He's throwing it short.
And that's why the defense is so fired up, because they are on the field for 30 minutes.
But the other fact is, Mark Schleff made a good point on this. This is now the 4th week that we've seen Tebow in action. Teams usually figure out a quarterback's tendencies and offensive tendencies after week 4. They're going to start picking apart this offense. You're going to see more interceptions coming. You're going to see more of those things happening. And I really think that this is going to start changing once this hits. It's going to be the same thing as what they did with Miami.
I do have a question, though, before we move on. If this continues to work, what does this mean? Again, I think part of the reason why it's working, I could be wrong, but I really do feel like part of the reason why it's working, this offense is so drastically different and simpler than anything that's ever been run in the NFL since the 1960s, that NFL defenses, they didn't know how to scheme for it. They're so used to the modern paradigm of NFL football that, going back to the days of, Red Grange and leather helmets and, throwing the ball.
That's really going back there.
Throwing the ball, 10 times a game. It's so different. I think they'll scout it out eventually, but for now, I think it's entertaining to watch. I think it's hilarious to watch because it's working.
It's just like what Miami did with that little wildcat they were doing. It's basically single wing back. They brought it back, and now it got figured out. Same thing's going to happen.
It's like a permanent wildcat, except the wildcat player's actually a quarterback. Strange.
Who can't throw the ball.
Hey, he can throw the ball, just
not accurately.
Well, yeah. Let me turn this down so I don't blow off at everyone's ears.
It's hockey time.
It is hockey time, as former Washington Capitals head coach Bruce Bordeaux, Vince knows him quite well.
Yeah. Bruce Bochy, you mean, don't you?
Yeah. Says that the Capitals front office made the right decision to fire him. He has since then picked up the job in Anaheim, but seems kind of strange to say. Hey, yeah, they were right. I should have been fired.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing, though. Anaheim was on a 7-game losing streak, wins a game, fire their coach that night, then hire Bordeaux. So it's just like, what is with these random, wacky coaching changes like that? But nonetheless, though, I think that the only reason they did it is because some fans might not have been happy with the fact that we talked about a few weeks ago that he kept Ovechkin on the bench and late in the game when they had the extra attacker out there. And so it's like, it's one of those things like you're not keeping our fans happy, so you're gone. So I think that's more or less what it was.
I think that they're not. I think with the talent that the Capitals have, that the fans expect more. I think they're in a place, they're a good team, but they're not dominant. They haven't won Stanley Cups, and I think you get to that point where, he's good. He's not ruining the team. He's not taking away, but he isn't one of those guys where you look at the coach and you're like, well, he's going to lead us to a championship. I think they just kind of got stagnant. The fans wanted a little bit more, so they really just wanted to change. Plus, there was the whole thing with Ovechkin, but I think at this point, it's just, they're like, we have the talent. We need a coach who can get us there, and he's not going to be one to do it.
And meanwhile, Columbus can't lose enough games to get Arneal fired. I don't understand.
Well, they had that great streak at the beginning. They were like 7-0 or something. They ripped off like 7 straight wins. Then they just started losing. We've seen them fizzle out in the first and second round as the top seed, where they should be advancing to conference finals, facing off against the Penguins. And that just wasn't happening. So I think a culmination of that, they decided to fire him thing. And I think he said that because I think he kind of knew somehow he was getting hired by Anaheim early on. He was like, I'll just say some nice things and we'll be done with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's landed a pretty decent job, all things considered.
He is the manager of the Giants now. So, Bruce Bochy. So,
hey, he's on the same coast at least now.
Yeah.
Five.
That is right there. 5
undivided guys. Interesting question for Division I football. Would you guys be okay with LSU-Alabama rematch in the national title, even if there were other undefeated teams left?
No.
Oh, interesting. We have very opposing views. See, I say absolutely. I see absolutely no reason, because the whole point of the BCS and the whole point of having a national championship game is to get the 2 best teams in the country to play each other.
Right.
And we had number 1 and number 2 voted. Number 2 lost by, I think it was a field goal. It was a good defensive struggle in overtime. So obviously they're still on par. There's not really another team out there. So I say you put them back at each other.
There is a team out there.
Who?
They're undefeated. It's called Houston. I don't care.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
You are trolling right now.
It says right here, on here it says, if there were other unbeaten teams left, Houston is an unbeaten team. They should at least play one of these 2 teams at the end of the season to balance it out. I would be okay if there was no other undefeated teams.
I understand what you're saying, and I love me some Boise State. I love me some BCS Busters, but it took a couple of years of Boise State beating big-time teams before they attained legitimacy. Houston has not beaten anyone yet. If Houston were to go and say, do what Boise State did, beat Oklahoma, okay, I'm fine. If they do it next year, put the Cougars in. They're ready to go. But I don't know. This year they have to. You got to prove yourself first, especially if you're winning a conference like the Conference USA, which has never produced a big time team.
It just bothers me with the way you said. If there are unbeaten teams left, Houston's an unbeaten team. They should at least play one of these 2 teams just to see what it would be like.
Obviously, blah 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 blah. National tournament, Houston should get a shot. But again, in this case, are these the 2 best teams in the nation?
That's the question. Are they the 2 best teams? Yes. I wouldn't necessarily be enraged if there was a rematch, but here's my view on it. You have conference championship games for a reason. We had the conferences of 12 or more schools. If Alabama doesn't even,
Oh, I'm sorry. There's another reason.
If Alabama does not even play in the conference championship game, then just in my opinion, if you don't play in your conference championship game or even win your conference championship game like we saw Oklahoma do back in 2003 when they lost to Kansas State, I don't feel that you deserve the chance to play for the national title. But like I said, that's just in my opinion. But I will say that I do agree with you guys that Bama and LSU are the 2 best teams.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think personally, Vince and yourself are really overrating being undefeated. Okay, Houston's undefeated. If Houston plays the same schedule as Alabama or LSU, they are not undefeated. Not even close.
Did I say anything about being undefeated?
No, I just sort of included you into Vince's group for some reason. Vince was just, I just don't think you can put that much weight on being undefeated.
That's what the question says.
Yes, it's what the question says, but I think
you're totally going away from the question. The question is,
well, there are other undefeated teams than Houston, and you're not raging about them.
What are the undefeated teams that are ranked though? I mean,
I was gonna say, who else is undefeated?
I thought. Never mind.
Houston's the only undefeated team left. So, I mean, if you're going purely by that question, then yes, Houston should be in that title in the title contention.
I mean, obviously, you got to think about it this way too. Remember years back when we had the possibility for an Ohio State-Michigan rematch, and then Ohio State got smoked in the national title game anyway. You're leaving out potential opponents that, in that case, Florida was obviously the best team in the nation. But they may have never gotten a chance to prove that if we had put Michigan back in the game.
I'm still a little confused with what Vince is getting at. Even if Houston goes undefeated through the rest of the season and they win out, I still think they shouldn't be in the national title Because if they play the same schedule as a team, like if they play in the Big 10, if they play in the Big 12, if they play in the SEC, they're not undefeated. So it means nothing.
We're talking right now. We're not talking if you were in.
No, he says at the end of the season if there's another.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to go.
Can I just make one more point real fast?
Go for it.
You talk about the Ohio State-Michigan controversy from a few years back. If they would have stuck Michigan in that BCS game, even if Ohio State would have beat them, I still would have been a little bit furious because, Michigan had their shot to beat us. They failed. Why should they get another chance? I'm kind of the same way right now. Bama had their chance to beat LSU. They didn't succeed, and they even got beat at home by LSU. So it's like, why should they get the rematch when someone else like Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, with the high-powered offenses they have, when they deserve probably just as much with the way that their offenses are run?
I think the thing that I found most surprising was that 3 SEC teams were in the top 3. It was the first time in history that it ever happened.
Yeah.
You would have thought Oklahoma State would have jumped. On the thing, it says the first time it's ever happened.
No,
that
second.
The first 3 teams have been ranked.
Back in the 60s, there was a Big 8 with Colorado, Nebraska, and I believe Texas were 1, 2, and 3.
That wasn't the BCS, though. First time in BCS history.
BCS
Boom!
history.
Roasted.
BCS history,
right.
yes, but not the first time in
Boom
the polls.
roasted.
All right, question. Billy, this is hypothetical. It's kind of on a tangent. All right, let's say that Mount Union, Wisconsin Whitewater played first game of the season, open date. Wisconsin Whitewater wins by a field goal in overtime. Would you say, oh, Mount Union doesn't deserve?
Tournament.
I know, but I'm saying, say it wasn't. Would you say when they got to, if Mount Union made it all the way through, would you say, well, another team should get a shot to play them? It's
Through
not
the
fair.
tournament or through something like the
Even if they make it
BCS?
through the tournament, wouldn't you have to say, well, this isn't really a fair national championship?
If you make it
because they
through a
had their
tournament,
chance?
then yes, it is a fair national title because you earned the chance to go there.
But they already had their chance to beat them.
Yeah, but
Again,
they
this
earned
is-
their way back in there.
This is like as apples and oranges as you can get,
But
man.
I'm just
There's a
saying, it's
national
still
tournament in
the
D3.
same thing, even if it's national tournament or not. If you're saying that, well, you had your chance to beat them before, it has nothing to do with what the 2 best teams are at the end of the season.
They just focus too much on rankings in Division 1.
Why? Why do they do that?
Money.
Same reason that they have the
Money.
title games.
Jesse, hats off to you for picking a great question because we are all like fired up all over this.
Well, it's time for something Steve can, be a little bit more knowledgeable about since he's been so entrenched in Division III football playoffs. It is D3 for 3, and of course we're talking about the playoffs. What else would we be talking about? Because playoffs are awesome. BCS Division 1, and the playoffs have been pretty great this year as well. That's what we should have done. We should have had the playoffs. Anyway, D3 for 3, we have the quarterfinals this week, and I have on our little script here, this is the week that we find out if Steve is a mad prediction genius or if he just doesn't like Whitewater, as he has Whitewater losing to Salisbury this week.
We will surely find out. I have been putting this Salisbury. I picked
This was
Wisconsin
about 4
Whitewater.
weeks ago that he first said this.
Salisbury Stakes.
Without even knowing, before the bracket even came out, I was like, Wisconsin Whitewater is going to lose in the 3rd round of the playoffs. And ever since I saw that Salisbury was most likely to get there, I have picked them to make it there, and I have been just stuck with it. It doesn't even matter. If there was some new evidence that Salisbury, let's just say Salisbury got into a really tight game last week, and it looked like they could have easily been beat. Just hypothetically. I can't change it. I'm going to stick with Salisbury. I picked them. I think they could be Wisconsin. Here's my whole thing, all right, just off that little rant there. If you look at both these teams on paper, Salisbury played a better schedule. The WEAC was okay this year. Salisbury played teams like Wesley. They played a really good Kane team last time in the playoffs. And if you match up their stats, they are very, very similar. Salisbury actually has the edge in a few categories. For example, points per game. Salisbury puts up 47.5 per game. Whitewater only puts up 37.33.
Only 37.3.
Only 37, but that's still a whole 10 points less than Salisbury. Another interesting statistic, red zone scoring. Salisbury is 83% in the red zone. Whitewater is like 70-some% in the red zone. I'm just saying, you match up these stats on paper, and with Salisbury playing a tougher schedule than Whitewater, you match up on paper, and
Steve,
Salisbury should win this game.
I have seen many, many young, foolish sports writers covering D3 that pick against Mount Union and Whitewater. And until it like I said when we first did our brackets, until it happens, I cannot pick against either of these teams. They've just proven that they are on such a different level than every other team in Division 3. Salisbury very well could win this game, but
Whitewater was a field goal away from losing to Wisconsin Oshkosh.
Mount Union was down with a
Exactly.
minute to go in the fourth quarter to
I don't
Baldwin
think
Wallace.
either of us are invincible. I think the Mount Union does have the edge, though, because we have the greatest defense in the nation, but I don't think they're invincible. I think Whitewater is much more likely to get knocked off just based on the simple fact that, look, they made it through the WEAC okay. They kind of struggled a little bit, and they haven't been playing good teams either. Albion, and they went through Franklin. They haven't been tested for a long time. They haven't been tested since Oshkosh. They've made it through a bunch of losing teams in the second half of their season. They're soft. They're going to overlook this game. Salisbury is going to put the triple option on their back, and they're going to run for a bajillion yards, throw the ball 4 times. Oh, by the way, Salisbury, best running team in the nation, most efficient passing team in the nation. Touchdown.
So in conclusion, go goals is what I'm hearing here.
In conclusion, go Seagulls.
It's Go
enough.
Steaks. Come on, guys. We have to get a movement started where they change their name from the Seagulls.
There's
to the
potential there
Steaks.
for a mascot.
So when I don't want to say it, but when Salisbury gets absolutely buried this weekend, I cannot wait for next week's show when you guys are like, "Wow, Steve, way to predict."
Wait,
oh, it's just gonna be 30 minutes of us trashing you.
It's gonna be bad.
If this prediction is totally wrong, Steve has to eat a Salisbury steak here during the middle of it.
That might be kind of
okay.
weird.
I like that punishment. That's great.
A cold one.
Vince, that just makes no sense at all. But I will say that Salisbury has a chance to do it this week, just for the ball control factor. They keep the ball in their offense. They keep Coppage off the field. That's a formula for a victory.
In case anyone else was curious, there actually are other games going on in the quarterfinals.
We just don't care much about those.
St. Thomas is playing the Cinderella story, St. John Fisher. That will be an interesting one to watch. St. John Fisher, who has looked like they should not have even been in the playoffs, have won now. A lot, and they've looked pretty good doing it too. Mary Hardin Baylor's playing Wesley. That's going to be a great game. And of course, we have the honor here. Mount Union is taking on Wabash, who is looking pretty good. A lot of interesting storylines for that game too. The best defenses in the nation playing in that game. But we've stayed our welcome too long. We got to move on. Raiders Zone Mageddon. Still in a fantasy football league. Yes, Steve still doesn't check his team. Yes, I am still dominant after starting the season horribly. I'm on my way to the title game.
But you're not, because you can't beat Billy. When we last looked at him, even though you have a better record than me, you're still in the consolation group because Billy is in your group slower.
If you had paid attention to me at the beginning of the year when I created the league, I would have told you would have heard that ESPN doesn't let you not have divisions. So we're taking the 2 best teams strictly and putting them in the playoffs. So right now, I am the number 2 team.
I see.
Thank you, sir. I have beaten Billy. In fact, I've beat Billy soundly the last 2 times I have played him.
Whoa.
I'm going to own all of you, so it doesn't even matter.
If Billy plays you in the championship, Billy doesn't deserve that shot. He had his chance to beat you.
Right?
He had his chance. He shouldn't. It should be Vince and I.
Yeah, but I also beat Jesse the first 2 weeks at the time we played this season too.
Yeah, but I was off to a slow start then. I was taking things easy. I didn't want to.
I'm so angry because I'm like, oh great, Billy and I are tied at 65. I'm like, oh, let's look. Oh, he's got 1 person left. Maybe he'll do better. Drew Brees. Great. I'm done.
And then here's the funny thing. Vince comes into my room. He's like, he says, "You ready to get beat?" I was like, "Dude, I'm beating you by 2 right now. You have no one left." And I got Drew Brees. He's like, he's going to throw an interception. Then we'd be tied.
You know what?
And he's going to get hurt.
All I have to say about my entire fantasy season can be summed up in a few words. There's no dirt like pay dirt.
I don't even know what it means.
I thought you were going to say whatever wins I get is gravy. I thought that was going to be your words.
Nope, well, yeah, but he hasn't gotten a win in a while, so there's been no gravy on the Steve Kandray gravy train.
There's no dirt but pay dirt. That's all I'm saying.
Again, I don't know what that means. I don't know how that applies to your season. You've lost resoundly every week.
You are 2-7 currently, maybe 2-10 now. I don't even know.
Yeah, we're on week 13, so yeah, 2-10. And I believe he won 2 of his first 4 games, so he hasn't won in 8 weeks.
Gravy.
It is pick time, guys. In the de facto Big 12 title game, number 10 Oklahoma takes on number 3 Oklahoma State. You got to think, if Oklahoma State wins handedly, maybe they jump Alabama, but probably not.
Give me Oklahoma State. I can't see Oklahoma's defense shutting down Blackman for an entire 60 minutes.
Oklahoma State literally has to win this game by 75 points in order to jump Alabama. That's how far ahead they are.
In order to gain a vote on Alabama.
In order to gain a vote. Yes, it'd be ridiculous. So, but I'm still going to say Oklahoma State.
Give me Oklahoma. They've won the last, I believe, 5 against Oklahoma State, and I think that Bob Stoops, they used to call him Big Game Bob. I think he pulls out his Big Game Bob hat and wins this game.
He already pulled out his Big Game Bob
hat
at Florida State.
He won his Big Game Bob game of the year.
He's doing it again.
I'll go with Oklahoma State, just so we can continue to have pebbles to throw at the BCS. Not that they will care or notice.
You throw pebbles, I'll throw boulders.
Yeah, well, Conference USA title game, Houston. Best team in the nation, according to Vince. They got their chance to prove it here against number 24, Southern Mississippi.
Houston all the way.
Say, there's no doubt Cougars are going to dominate the Golden Eagles.
Who cares? It's the Conference USA title game. Come on now.
Hey, you do not say who cares about Case Keenum. Case Keenum is the greatest quarterback in the country.
Whoa.
Wow, bold words.
Whoa, sir.
Just look at his stats, man.
Have you heard of Andrew Luck? Or do you understand that he plays football?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Give me both of those 2 would be a good matchup.
It'd be interesting.
Suddenly he's not. Oh, well, he's the greatest player. Oh, well, it'd be a good matchup. He's pretty close.
It would be a good matchup.
Houston wins Conference USA by a landslide. That's the end right there.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
And then beats Alabama and LSU at the same time.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with Houston. I don't. Whatever. It's the Conference USA title game. SEC title: Georgia against LSU. We know the Bulldogs got a shot because they are in the SEC title game, right?
No, LSU. Murray just is not going to play good against LSU's defense.
Well, Georgia had their chance to be a successful team, but they lost to Boise State, so I guess that's out the window. They shouldn't even have a chance to play for the. I'm just trying to go on Billy's.
That was a stretch, but
it was way too much of a stretch. But yeah, I gotta say LSU.
Say work on your material.
Have they worn their Nike Pro Combat jerseys yet?
Yeah.
When?
They won a couple weeks ago.
Okay, because I was waiting for that. Remember all my predictions? I was like, are they gonna wear them? Like, oh well.
Sorry. Georgia had the opportunity. They were asked whether or not they wanted. This is a funny story because I hate those uniforms. Again, anyone who knows me knows I obsess over uniforms, and I hated Georgia's Pro Combats.
Were they all yellow?
No, that would be the epitome of horrible uniform.
Inside Raider Zone Weekly joke.
Anyway, Georgia had their players were asked whether or not they would want to wear their Pro Combats for the SEC title game, and they said no, we hate those uniforms. Don't ever show them to us ever again. And so I don't know if Georgia then went out and burned the uniforms. I don't know, but they're not wearing them again. I thought it was pretty funny.
LSU, by the way.
And again, I'm glad that we can move on to other conversations as if we were going to pick anyone but LSU. NFL time: Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. This is the day where the Red Rifle proves that the Bengals are for real, and they beat the Steelers, right?
Yep, it is.
Oh wow!
I'm going to go with Andy Dalton and the Bengals.
At Pittsburgh? Wow. Okay.
I have to pick the Steelers, but I think that they can win. A little shaky this season, but I think they can still clinch the division.
I'm extremely bitter about AJ Green and his gigantic catch. Why can the Browns not draft a good wide receiver?
Because they're taken before they get a chance.
I'm going to go with... We had a draft Julio Jones. We traded him. Anyways, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh to win.
If the Browns could just fill every position with great offensive line draft picks, they'd be set. They'd be winning Super Bowl. They'd be cranking out Super Bowls. Unfortunately, they can't draft anything else. In this game, I'm going with Pittsburgh. I can't see Cincinnati walking into Pittsburgh and winning that game. But they could. They got the talent to. Oakland at Miami.
I'll take the Raiders. Miami...
You don't sound very committed there.
This is a game that you just look at, it's almost hard to choose, because Miami was on a winning streak, but they were playing pretty bad teams. They got beat by Dallas, but I just don't think Miami has it in them.
It's kind of like the Conference USA Championship. I don't know. Oakland, I guess.
Carson Palmer has done really well since that first game where he came in completely cold.
A new 3 plays.
And Miami has really said that they played hard all season. It's just they weren't getting the positive results. They're finally getting those results. They lost a close one to Dallas. However, that being said, I'm going to take Oakland on this game. I think Palmer is getting back to how he was, and I'm going to go with Oakland.
Miami is going to be at home. They're going to have the big South Beach crowd. So naturally, they're going to lose. Oakland, give them to me.
Exactly.
Detroit at New Orleans.
Give me the Saints. Superdome's very hard to play in, and Detroit without Ndamukong Suh.
I like New Orleans. They've been doing good the last couple weeks. I feel the momentum. I feel like they're building back up to being an elite team. I mean, not that they really fell off, but building back up more. And,
plus, Drew Brees is going to help me beat Jesse.
As if you ever had a shot at beating me.
Why did we not talk about Ndamukong Suh in this? Like, at any point in time, we should have brought that up.
Billy actually mentioned this. My thought was, it happened a week ago now. I felt like it was just so far removed from the news.
It's still huge news, though, because, especially with him talking to the commissioner and everything, I still think it's again,
if he appeals and it gets rescinded, we will talk about it next.
Whoa. We had our chance to talk about Ndamukong Suh. We lost it. Sorry, guys. We can't talk about it now. We lost our chance to do it.
With that being said, I think Detroit really misses Suh unless Nick Fairley really opens it up. I think New Orleans wins this game, particularly being at home.
Actually, someone did. Now that I can't not say it, someone edited the Chrysler commercial that Ndamukong Suh did, where he's like driving through his neighborhood, he's going home to see his mama, and it's like this this kind of intense but heartfelt thing, like he's going home, and then in the same thing, like slow motion with this epic music play, cuts it black and white to him stomping on players and doing making illegal hits and stuff, and it's great. Anyway. I'll go with New Orleans. Detroit is really in a backward slide. Bonus round, final pick of the evening. What are the odds of an all-purple Final Four in Division III? We already know Steve's answer.
45%.
45%, really?
Yeah, I'll give it a pretty.
So who are you picking who you think is going to lose? I'm not trying to question you here, but
I think the team that has the best chance to lose this weekend is St. Thomas.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that St. John Fisher is playing some really good football and they're hot.
I'm going to go with 75%. I have St. Thomas going all the way. However, St. John Fisher has been like VCU for these games, so I won't be surprised if they win. But 75% won't be surprised if it's an all-purple matchup.
Honestly, not, my whole Salisbury upset theory to the side, I really think there's only like 40% chance of it. I mean, if you look at the way these crazy upsets that have happened in this tournament, I mean, I could see St. John Fisher upsetting St. Thomas. I could see Wesley upsetting Mary Hardin Baylor. So I'm going to have to say Wesley?
Wesley's purple.
No, they're like teal.
Are they teal?
They're black and blue.
They're black and
Come
blue.
on, man.
Black
You
and
just
blue
saw,
or
you just saw them
something
here
like
a
that.
couple years ago. They're like
The only thing I remember
they're
that
like
game
black
is,
and baby blue,
the
actually.
only thing I remember that game is Kurt Rocco trying to dive for some reason, hitting on his head, and Cecil coming in.
We're running out of time, so I'll say about 85%, and really the majority of that 15%, I believe, belongs with Mary Hardin Baylor. I really could see Wesley winning that game, and in fact, I didn't even have Mary Hardin Baylor in my Final Four. So, for whatever it's worth, there's that.
I had Del Valley going all the way. That really worked out for me.
I told you. What did I tell you? You never listen to me. That's going to do it for us on Raiders Zone Weekly. We hope you enjoyed us this week, and don't forget to tune in next Thursday. We also have quarterfinal action going on as Mount Union will be taking on the Wabash Little Giants. You get to see or get to hear head coach Larry Karras coach against his nephew Eric Rayburn. So it should be interesting stuff. And we'll have that Gino's pregame show at 11:15 kickoff at noon here on the radio voice of Mount Union, WRMU 91.1.